I'm about to do something I never thought I would do in a church building again. Oh my God, I am heartily sorry for having offended thee. In choosing to do wrong and failing to do good, I have sinned against you, who I should love above all things. I firmly resolve, with the help of your grace, to sin no more and to avoid the near occasion of sin. That was the act of contrition that I memorized in 2nd grade at Our Lady of the Holy Souls Catholic School. And I bet that's not how you expected this to start. So there's this idea that I learned about when I was doing some chaplain work down at St. Luke's a few years ago of embedded theology. Everyone has 2 theologies. One is their embedded theology, the one that they come to through their early formative spiritual experiences. Even if it is an absence of theology, this is still something that's deeply embedded in who we are. Your deliberative theology is the one you pick. You deliberate about it and decide what feels right. This is often necessary because many of these embedded theologies fail to live up to what we might have hoped they would have as children. So when I started to think about questions of forgiveness and reconciliation, I couldn't get it out of my head, this thing that I had memorized in 2nd grade. I was always particularly interested in the near occasion of sin. Like I couldn't even stand next to sin without getting in trouble. That seemed very confusing to me. I was an innocent bystander. But when I was a child, I sinned as a child. I had the mind of a child, so I don't even remember what those sins were. I didn't at the time. But like all good Catholic school children, in 2nd grade on up, I lined up outside the confessional regularly with my class, waiting my turn to go into the tiny dark room at the back of the sanctuary and confess these sins that I never could remember. So I made them up. I was mean to my brother. I told my mother a lie. I thought something mean about my friend. I took something that didn't belong to me. I figured I'd probably done these things at some point in time between my last confession and this one. And the priests, almost unilaterally kind, gentle men, would ask me what I was going to do about those things, to make amends if I understood why they were wrong, and to assign me a litany of prayers for the sins that I didn't really remember committing, but was sure I probably had, or at least something like them. I would pray the prayers, 5 Hail Marys, 3 Our Fathers, and then I would get forgiveness for the sins that I'd made up in the first place. If my mother ever sees this, we're going to have a very uncomfortable conversation. So I guess this is another confession of sorts, for making up sins to tell the priest, because I didn't really think about sin in between visits to the confessional. But I was a child. In my limited understanding of the world, the confession booth was like a drive-through forgiveness window. It was wholly transactional. And this is not the fault of all the good nuns who tried to teach me otherwise. This is totally on me. It was wholly transactional. Input list of wrongdoings, get a prescription for prayer, and call me in the morning. Having committed worse transgressions since, and had them visited upon me, I think I know a little better now. Forgiveness seldom follows such neat steps. There is no shortcut to forgiveness. There are countless roadmaps, as any friendly Google search will tell you, but which one should we follow? Well, we follow whichever one works for us, which is one of the joys of Unitarian Universalism. We can look across every source at our disposal to find the answers that lead us in the directions of more abundant living. Perhaps that is Buddhist practices, perhaps that is energy healing, perhaps that is a Christian concept of divine redemption, Perhaps that is a metaphysical reality, or perhaps you are responding to the ways that forgiveness might change your chemical composition. You can Google that too. It's pretty interesting. But we can choose, which is pretty exciting. But let us attempt to get our collective bearings a little bit. If sin is acting against the natural connectedness of the universe, which we talked about a couple weeks ago, then forgiveness might be thought of as a way to restore connectedness. It does. And it doesn't. Sin, wrongdoing, might disrupt the natural connections of reality and human relationship in a way that is very painful. But the act, the transgression, which calls for forgiveness, forges a different kind of connection all its own. When you wrong someone, or someone wrongs you, you do not become disconnected. Quite the opposite. There is a connective pull in the universe that cannot be denied, and it's neutral. It's neither good nor bad. It just exists. And acts that call us to forgiveness function as a tether of sorts, connecting us to whoever has caused us harm. It is not a comfortable connection or a friendly, warm connection, but it is a connection. This is what we carry around. So forgiveness doesn't reconnect us. It liberates us. Like the monk who refused to carry the woman, we carry each wrong, each hurt around on our backs. And for many, I might even go so far as to say for all of us at one point or another, the weight of what we carry pushes us to the limits of our endurance. That connection to that pain, to that trauma, which only intensifies the more painful and more traumatic the transgression was. So if forgiveness liberates, the temptation to go ahead and get to it is very strong. Perhaps you have felt this in yourself. Perhaps you have heard the rhetoric of forgiveness from people you love, people who want to see you better, moving past things. Perhaps you've seen it in the media. Perhaps you've seen it in very peaceful memes shared on Facebook, where if you are in a very angry place, they make you just want to never go back to Facebook because everybody's so happy all the time. So if forgiveness liberates, the temptation to get to it is strong and wrong. Too often, forgiveness is spoken of as the solution to the pain we feel at betrayal, at loss, at deep existential disillusionment in another being. But it is, unfortunately, not until we have moved through that pain, forgiveness is just another word. And it is one that can trap us, leaving us to bottle up our pain and pretending that we have moved on, resulting in secret wounds with no way to heal them. No one is served by trying to rush the process or work on a deadline. It's kind of like grief in that way. No one can tell you how to do it right, or how long it will take, or even what you will be like on the other side. Forgiveness, healing, grief, they are all interconnected. There is a grieving that comes with hurt. So no one can tell us exactly how to do this, how long it will take, or what it will look like. But here's what I do know. Forgiveness is not a path to healing. Healing is a path to forgiveness. Which is honestly kind of a bummer, because it would be great if saying we forgive got us out of all the messy, vulnerable, complicated work of healing. But it doesn't work that way. So why do it? Why forgive? It doesn't heal you. It won't spare you from the work of processing pain. And it doesn't fix your life. At least that's not what it's designed to do. It is designed to set you free. Now, forgiveness is an internal process. Reconciliation, on the other hand, and this is an important distinction, reconciliation is an outward process which requires a willing partner. If forgiveness offers liberation, then reconciliation does offer the possibility of reconnection. But it is not always possible, and it is not always desirable. Forgiving, Sarah Sophia Eisenman writes that forgiving and reconciling with someone before they are properly contrite or committed to real change has a name. It's called enabling. Reconciliation cannot be forced and is not always either necessary or helpful. Sometimes walking away is the more loving option. Reconciliation is not always possible, but forgiveness is, given a long enough timeline, I think. I have to add that bit of uncertainty in there because I'm a little uncomfortable prescribing a universal solution. Shocker. I believe that the process and possibility of forgiveness is infinite, but I could be wrong. I have not experienced every hurt in the world and moved through it in a way that I can guarantee with absolute certainty that it's always a place that you can get to. I don't want anyone to come away with the message this morning that there is some kind of ultimatum to forgive or that that's what you need to do right now. It's always a possibility, but it is still a choice and not the only one. Ijeoma Oluo, who is a writer, a survivor, and an advocate for those who have been abused or assaulted, offers this reflection. We often talk about healing from wrongs committed against us as being part of a revenge-forgiveness binary. Some take it even further and say you must push past forgiveness or force reconciliation, making amends with the person who harmed you so that you can both become better people. And this may work for the person who stole your laptop, maybe even the person who stole your boyfriend. But is this really the only path to healing when you have been abused, when you have been assaulted, when someone you love was killed, when your rights have been repeatedly violated, when your trust has been repeatedly or grievously broken? When you have been grievously wronged, the pain it causes is real, and your feelings of hurt, hurt, anger, and fear are valid. In Psychology Today, Deborah Shermer Coughlin reminds us that grieving and healing is a slow process. Slow processes cannot be hurried or skipped. Forgiveness is only morally acceptable when it brings peace, comfort, or harmony to those who have been wronged or victimized. To do anything else is to center something other than the victim or wronged person's well-being. And that, to me, is not something I'm willing to do in health. So if you have listened today and felt a pressure to forgive, I invite you to explore that tug if it feels hopeful, if it feels helpful. But if that is a doorway that you don't want to open, or one that remains locked, please walk on past without shame, remembering that here and now, pain, rage, betrayal, depression, numbness, these are real, they are valid, they are uncomfortable, and they are part of the healing process. As much as we'd like to hurry on past them, they deserve our attention and our respect. And no one can tell you what that should look like. Not even me. But I can offer an alternative to forgiveness when forgiveness feels like it is not an option. Nancy A. Stanlick, who writes in the Florida Philosophical Review, offers the term reconciling with harm, and I don't believe she's the only one. But she defines this reconciling with harm as to recognize oneself as harmed, and in the most serious cases, to recognize harm as part of who one is. But it is also to aspire to a vision of oneself as a person who is much more than simply harmed. This is a recognition of what was done and a path to empowerment and commitment to your own future well-being. She believes that reconciling with harm thus affirms individual value and makes possible meaningful social relations by maintaining or creating dignity and self-respect that may not result from forgiveness, revenge, or traditional concepts of reconciliation. Reconciling with harm in this way offers a different kind of opportunity for healing and self-compassion that seems just as valid and life-affirming as forgiveness and reconciliation could be. All three are avenues to liberation, to wholeness, because that's the real risk of forgiveness. When we release the things that have been holding us, the things to which we are tethered without our desire to be, who knows what comes next? Valerie Carr, an American civil rights activist and educator and faith leader, says, "Forgiveness is not forgetting, it's freedom from hate. When we are free from hate, we can go after the systems that imprison us all. The real risk of forgiveness is liberation. The gift of forgiveness is liberation as well."